Hey, welcome back to our jokes application. We're in the process of adding a users table to our application. And in the last video, we tried to create a users form that would allow us to type in a new username and password. However, when we create the button and we try to register, let's see, I'll put in a password, it'll tell me that the processing file has not been yet created. It's not found on the server. So that's what we're trying to make in this video. So let's go and open our code editor again. Alright, so it's time to create a new file and register the new user. So let's go and make a new file in our index here, and we'll call it process and new user. So I'm going to indicate that this is a PHP program. The first thing I want to do is include our database connection utility, so that way we can read and write from the database. So we're going to get the username, password, and second password from the form. And so I'm going to be using a get variable that will be submitted from the form. So let's see what those variable names were. So the item that I created, it was called name equals username, password 1, and password 2. So those are the three items in the get variable that will work here. All right, let's try to echo out the values that were just given to us. Make sure that we've got them correct. So we're trying to add a new user, and I'll echo out the new username. I'll echo out the new password and the new password. So obviously not very secure when you start putting these things on the screen, but it's good for testing purposes. So I'm going to save this, and let's go and refresh this page now. So the URL says I'm trying to username Shad, and password is password, and the second password is 3, it looks like. So let's just refresh, and there I've got the message now. It says trying to add the new user. And password is that. So what happened here? New user didn't print anything. So username, I spelled it I spelled it wrong. So I need to fix that somehow. Let's go into here. The name was called username, right? There's the misspelling. Username. Okay, let's try that again. So back up, refresh the page. Let's make a new guy. Let's call him Lolly, and the password is 123. There it is. So the username is Lolly, the passwords are here. So far so good. Now it's time to put these guys into the database. Okay, back into process new user. So now we're going to create a select statement that will enter this to the database. Alright, so the select statement that I'm going to write is to insert into the users table. And there are 3 columns that I'm going to insert: the ID, the username, and the password. And then the insert statement goes like this. You type in the word values, and then you put in the actual 3 values that you're going to insert. So no means that I'm not going to provide a user ID. Remember, when I designed the database, I created the first column as an auto increment. So no means don't accept a number, we'll just take the next available number. The username and password then are the 2 values that come into the table. So I can use new password 1 or 2, either one. They should be the same value. We'll do some error checking later to make sure that they do match. Alright, so then the next step is to execute the SQL statement. So we're going to run this thing called mySQL arrow query, and then we'll put in the string that we're going to run. And then we'll save that as a variable called result. If it doesn't work, then we will tell the program to die and have a message. So if there is a result, then we will tell it that the registration is a success. If the result variable is not set, if it's a null value, then we'll say something went wrong and not registered. Well, there's some things to add to this, obviously. This is way too simple, but it will work if the user does things correctly. Let's save the work and try it. So I'm going to go back to Lolly and use the same password. So 123 and 123 and register. So it says registration success. Well, sounds good. Let's go check it out, see what's in the database. So I'm going to browse the users table again and browse. And there is Lolly at 123. It looks good. Now let's introduce some problems here. So first of all, let's try to re-register Lolly again. So if we type in the same username and password and create the new user, it says registration success. Now let's look at the table. We browse, and now we've got 2 Lollys going on here. Well, we should only allow the user to register once. So this is perhaps a security issue, or maybe it's just smart programming. But let's fix that. So we'll select a statement to see if Lolly's in the database, and if she already exists, then we'll fail. We can't let the person keep registering over and over. So before we do anything about inserting the user, let's put in some comments here to check to see if the user exists. Okay, so let's make a select statement to check to see if Lolly is in the database. So here's the select statement. Select all the columns from the users table where the username equals the variable new username. So the next statement is to run a query, and we'll save the results of this SQL statement into the variable called query. So we're going to check to see if this results object has a property called number of rows, and if it's greater than 0. If that is a true statement, then we know that someone already exists in the database with that name, and you shouldn't register twice. So we will then echo the username. It already exists. And so if you can't register twice, then you should try something else. Okay, so that would solve one problem. Let's try this again. So I'm going to save the results. And let's go back and try to register again. So let's go with Lolly, and let's put in 123 as our password and register. And now this time it says the username Lolly is already in the database and you can't register twice. All right, good. Okay, here's another issue. So we've asked the user to put in the password twice, and they should probably match, right? So what would happen if they don't match? So let's go with a new guy. Let's call this guy Poppy. And his password is going to be 123, and then he confirms it with ABC. And we register, and we get two different passwords, and it says here registration is success. Uh-oh. And what did he get for a password? Let's see which one it picked. So it picked the first one, the 123. So the problem here is we need to have a comparison to see if the two passwords match. So we could probably start right here after line 9. And let's just check to see if they match. So we'll put in another if statement. We'll ask if the password 1 does not equal password 2, then we'll echo an error message and then tell them to try again. Okay, let's go back and try to register, and we'll see if this works. Let's type in this guy named Yugi, and his password is going to be 123, and let's put in a couple of letters. And so his passwords do not match, and the login obviously didn't work. So let's call that a success. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is give the user a link. So I'm going to echo out a tag reference. So href equals index. And so this will bring them back to the main page. All right, let's try one more. So we're going to register Jorge. He's going to use a password that actually matches, and we'll create the new user. I tried to create Jorge, and it says registration success, and click here to return to main, and now we're ready to go. Let's check to see if Jorge is in the database. And we created Jorge here as number 13. So that looks like a great stop right now. We've got ourselves a registration page that's up and running, and now let's go on and see if we can log those users in.